Okay, there we go. Thanks, Yossi. Okay, good morning, everyone. We are up to Shmuel Bey's Perek Yud. Perek Yud, we're going to see, is going to set the stage really for the entire rest of the Sefer Shmuel Bey's, and also David's life, and not in a good way. We're not going to see this as a positive. It's going to seem innocuous in many ways, like what's this have to do with David's personal life? But we're going to see small things that are going to pave the way for a bigger narrative, which is going to begin in next week's, sorry, not next week's, next parak and parak Yud Aleph. But it really begins right here with parak Yud. We opened up the previous chapter by saying that we switch in David's life between the national and the personal. And we had all these wars. And then in the last chapter, we discussed David's personal promises and chesed that he wanted to do for Shaul's family, especially for the children of Yehonatan. And he took care of Mephibosheth and all of his children, even the fields and everything. He came back to them, ensured that they were going to be taken care of really forever. And it is in that theme of chesed that we continue this parak, but not in a personal matter, more of a very much public matter. For a personal reason, we'll see in a moment, but it was done in a very public matter. And let's begin. Vahi achareichin, vayamas melech Moav, melech bnei Ammon, vayimloch Hanun beno tachtav. So there was a king of Ammon. His name was Nachash. Nachash, the king of Ammon, died. He passed away. And now the king of Ammon is Hanun. Hanun, ironically, right, is a word in Hebrew means compassionate. Rachum v'chanun, right? It's like also some type of merciful type of, synonym. And we're going to see how merciful he really is as a person, or is this a little bit ironic in terms of his name? This is one of my favorite topics, is names in Tanakh or names in general. So after David, the Kli Yakar makes the connection. After David does chesed for Mephibosheth, he's now doing more chesed. What does this mean, more chesed? Chazal paint a picture. We saw that David looked around at all of the borders of Israel, and he waged war against everybody. They waged war against him, he waged war against them, and he totally pushed out the borders of Eretz Israel. There was one nation that he did not do this with, and that is Ammon. And why is that? So Chazal tell us that Moab, remember, he was very, very, let's say, fierce, vicious, maybe, with Moab in how he was vengeful, because Moab murdered his entire family, minus one brother. One brother was able to run away from Moab. He trusted Moab to take care of his family. After all, they are family by blood. And they killed all of them, including David's parents, except for one brother, Elihu, ran away, and he sought refuge in Bnei Ammon. Nachash, the king of Ammon, took care of him and watched him and guarded him and protected him. So David felt an achrayas responsibility to now not wage war against Ammon. They're good people. I don't need to do anything to them. And in fact, now that their father has died, what am I going to do? What do kings do? When the king dies, right, what do? They send a delegation. Every country sent a delegation. It's always a big deal. Is the king going to go? Is a secretary of state going to go? Is the first lady going to go? It's a whole. So David decides, I need to do something. Vayomer David, chesed im Chanun ben Nachash. I should do chesed with Chanun ben Nachash. Kasher asa aviv imadi chesed. Just like his father did chesed with me, I need to repay them and do chesed for them. Vayishlach David lenachamo biyad avadav. el Aviv, vayavo avdei David eretz b'nei Am. So he sends a group of people, a delegation, to Hanun to be Menachem Avel for their father. After all, what is so wrong with this? Chazal on this pasuk take David to task. I don't know. Does anyone here, before I get to Chazal, anyone here see anything wrong with what David does? King dies, you send a delegation, you do chesed with him. What's so bad? So the Gemara says this is really, really bad. The Torah says, Lo tidrosh shlomam v'tovatam ad olam. That when it comes to the two nations, Ammon and Moab, specifically Ammon and Moab, Lo tidrosh shlomam v'tovatam ad olam. You're never allowed to have seek peace with these two nations, even though we discussed last week that with other nations, your first job is to ask for a treaty, not with Ammon and Moab. Why not? Ammon and Moab are our direct cousins. They both come from Lot. They both were Kafui Tov. Avraham took care of Lot for so many years. Avram saved Lot and his daughters, therefore creating the nations Ammon and Moab. When the Jewish people were vulnerable when they left Egypt, Ammon and Moab did nothing to help. Not even water and not even any bread, right? Therefore, the Torah says you're not allowed to do anything proactive in a peaceful manner with these two nations. Okay? To the extent that the Gemara says that what David did is going to cause more harm in David's life. Kol hamarachim, right? If you are supposed to, right, if you have misplaced mercy on people that you should be cruel to, then Hashem's going to pay you back. And we've seen this already, at least one other time in our learning. Misplaced mercy. We've seen that with whom? Anyone know the example of where we saw misplaced mercy?
Shaul
HaMelech. Shaul did not kill the king of Agag, right? Didn't kill Agag. And what happens? Not immediately. You don't see any immediate repercussion for not killing Agag. But that is the Purim story, comes out of Shaul's misplaced mercy. This is a big discussion right now in Eretz Yisrael. It has been a big discussion for a very long time. You let the leaders of the nation stay alive. So some are going to say you do because it's better to know the enemy that you have right now and not the enemy you don't know. And maybe the next in line is even worse and more aggressive. That's a very reasonable objective. And some people say, no, we don't play those games. We don't kill the head of the snake. They're a leader, we're a leader. Like you have to rule. There's some rules that you have to follow. People are really arguing that and say rules. They don't play by rules. Why should we play by rules? Why should we release, prisoners that are going to head, right? Yesterday, the person that we released in the prisoner exchange in November, December, that was the person that tried to murder more Jews. So it's a very tough situation that the Jewish people are always in. I would say always. Now it's very acute, but it's an ongoing situation for the last probably 40, 50 years. Trading, not trading, Achzarios, Rachmanos. And this is going to be another example where David he makes a mistake. He makes a mistake in judgment, and he has misplaced Rachmanos. And it makes sense here why he would want to go ahead and do something nice for them. The Ramban writes explicitly that the reason why Ammon and Moab, we can't engage with them is they're the Kafui Tov. And we know that even when we do good for them, it's in their nature, they're not going to appreciate it. And they're going to turn it back on us. And then we're going to be vulnerable and susceptible to more attacks from them. And that's where we're going to see what's going to happen in a very, very soon. Very, very soon. So Mepharshim are troubled as to what exactly did David do. David made a mistake. Where was his error in judgment? David thought he needs to do a karsatil for them, and he had no choice. Like he had to do it. Others say the Sefer Chinuch writes that maybe this Isser of Lo Tidro Shalomam Tovatam only applies during the time of war. Here he's not at war, or at least David thought he wasn't at war with them. This is pretty low level. He just, dropping people off. What's a big deal? And we're going to see that it's going to become a big deal. So be very, very careful about how you treat people that are your enemies, even if right now they might be acting cordial, might be acting in a certain way, or might not be in an act of formation of attacking you. That's not the way many of our enemies act towards us.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
So was the word on the street at that time, and today we know that Shaul was basically kind of taken away from being the king because of what he did. Was that known at the time? It was like common knowledge? Because if it was, it's very hard for David, not to go ahead and do something like this, because if he saw, if it was known that Shaul was kind of removed because of what he did, here he's doing something similar.
So you can argue, right? So that's what the Mefarshim are struggling with. It seems to be clear that people would know why Shaul was taken, especially David, because David was privately anointed the king before it was done publicly. The Mefarshim are struggling with this. You can argue that there Hashem said kill everybody, and Shaul didn't listen. That's not here. Here Hashem said nothing about Ammon, meaning there's no engagement with Ammon yet. David's initiating something. So maybe when you're initiating something and being nice, what's so bad about that? Those are some of the arguments that could be made in this situation. And we're going to see that David's side, what did he do wrong? He's trying to be a nice guy. So be very, very careful when it comes to our enemies. So Vayomer, look at Pasuk Gimel. Sarei b'nei Ammon el Chanan Adonai. Chanan's a new king. And the Sarim, the officers of Bnei Ammon, his advisors, they say, you really think that David is coming here? Honor, respect your dead father? Right? People are so cynical. They hate us so much. They think even when we act out of kindness, that what we're doing is so horrific. Halo bavor chakur es ha'ir uleragla lahafcha shalach David es avadecha elach. Oh, you know why they're here? You're weak. You're weak, buddy. Right? You're the son. You just took over. No one knows you. The David's coming in. These are Mossad agents. These aren't just regular delegates that are just coming to give you nechama. No. They came here to spy on you, and they're going to write down all your secrets. And they're going to walk around the palace and find themselves in places and find all of our treasures. And they're going to come in a few days later and capsize and take over this entire country. Because you know what? You are new and you don't know. So they prey on Hanan's newness, and maybe he doesn't know enough. True. But innate inside of them, they always think the Jewish people are doing something wrong. So when the Adei David comes, he captures them. He imprisons them. What does he do to them? He does something that is unbelievably embarrassing. He embarrasses them. He shaves half their beard. Right? Everyone back then, all men had beards. Couldn't shave with the razor. Like, what are you going to do? Maybe you can cut a little bit with a scissor, but everyone had beards. So he shaved half their face. Vayichros es madvehem, cut their shirts, their garments in half. Oh, he didn't cut half their pants, right? Up until they're like below their stomach, right below the stomach. He cut half of their shirts. This is tremendously embarrassing. This is like, a delegation coming for someone's funeral. In England, in France, and then putting those 4 people into jail and leaving them there forever. The big busha. The big busha. So cuts half. Why does he cut half? Because first of all, this is more embarrassing. People knew one of the signs of a Jewish man, before the invention of a modern day shaver, was that we had beards. So people knew that we couldn't shave. So if they shaved all of it, what's the big deal? Then they look like everybody else. They shave half, they shave the other half. They're going to look like this. They're going to look like a mess. It's embarrassing. And these are people that are prominent in the government right now. At least it reminds me of a story. This story doesn't have any meaning to this, but it just reminds me of a story that happened to me. I was going to camp. I was going into ninth grade. I was going to camp in Israel for the summer. And the day we were leaving the camp, my mother realized I didn't get a haircut. You got to get a haircut before camp starts. And it was a day where my barber, like the guy that I went to in Staten Island, name was Tony, he closed. He was closed. So I was like, what do we do? We're going to bring him. So she brought me to her person that cuts her hair and put me down in the seats. And next thing I knew, my mother yelled from her seat, and she wasn't even watching. She was watching, I don't know, reading a magazine, and they cut off one of my sideburns. Right? I don't know, one of the Milas living in a community now, in a Jewish community, is like, you don't have to tell people as much. I think today, don't cut the sideburns. It's more, people know a lot more. The non-Jewish barbers are more educated. Back then they were not. And I remember every single time my parents brought me to get a haircut, they had to remind them, don't cut the sideburns. She forgot, and they cut one of my sideburns. So just imagine this, right? I'm a boy in 8th grade going into Israel for the summer. One sideburn's off. Now we have to decide on the spot, we cut the other one to make it look even, or do we just like make this lopsided and color it in pencil? So if I knew now, right, it's usher to cut the other one. You can't, it's a very serious prohibition from Torah to cut the sideburn from where that is. That's what we did, Baruch Hashem, Siyata D'Shmaya, and we took a pencil on the other side and colored it. Thankfully, within a week or two, but it was super embarrassing. I was like very self-conscious about this, like for a few weeks in the summer until things grew back. And boys don't care as much as girls would, but still, I was very, very embarrassed. You imagine these guys are super embarrassed about what they did, and these are people that represent the country. These aren't just regular. Okay, Vayagidu LeDavid. So Vayagidu LeDavid, Vayishlach LeKrasam. So this was told to David. Why was this told to David? Because these men were so embarrassed that they couldn't even bring themselves to go before David Melech. Right? Ki hayu hanashim nichlamim ma'od, because they were very embarrassed. Vayomer HaMelech, so David sent that back to them, Shavu b'Yericho, ad yitzamasik zikanchem b'shaftim. You don't even stay in Yericho. Yericho, we know, is a border city of Eretz Israel, because that was the first city the Jewish people conquered when they entered Eretz Israel. So wait there until things grow back, and that would be fine. Okay, so some of the Mefarshim are troubled with this, because how can they be settling in Yericho? The Torah, the Navi says very, very clearly, after Yeshua conquered Yericho, then no one is allowed to build it up again. In fact, if you build it up again, then you and your children will perish. And this happened actually in Melachim Aleph, Perek Zayin. We'll see that Bezrat Hashem at some point in the future. That Chiel, the person named Chiel, built it up, and all of his children ultimately perished. So one answer, the simple answer of the Meshech Chochmah, is that you can't build it up. It doesn't mean you can't live there, right? It might have been a decimated city, but now you can live there. So they live there. They live in a tent. They pitch a tent and they live there until that until that point. Okay, until that point. Others give other answers that are more nuanced, that maybe they built it up partially and partially is okay, but not to make it into a full out city might be another answer as to what happened over here. The Radak makes maybe the obvious point based on my story is that it's halakhically prohibited to shave the other side of the beard. Just because one side of your beard was shaved, you can't use a razor, therefore, on the other side. That would also be also be a problem. Vayir b'nei Amon kini bashu b'David. So Amon realized, right? So play this out. So if David was really sending spies, and then they nailed the spies and they embarrassed them, so David would react in one way to them, in a "you got me" way. David was well-intentioned and well-meaning, they acted a different way. They noticed that the way that David and the government acted with them was in a way that David was very angry. He was surprised by this behavior. Vayishlachu b'nei Amon, vayiskeru es Amon beis rechov es Aram Tzova, esrim elef ragli, that's melech macha elef ish, ish tov, shnei masar elef ish. Now, what do the Bnei Ammon do? They are afraid for a war. So what do? They hire people, mercenaries, soldiers, to go up, to get ready, to fight against them. Right? This is all in their heads now. Right? This is now 2 steps. This sometimes happens when a new king takes over who needs to assert his power. What does he do? He has to show, I'm the Almighty and powerful. So you make a mistake, and what do? You double down on the mistake. It's one of the biggest mistakes that people make in life, is that when they make a mistake and they're unwilling to step back and say, I made a mistake. Instead, they go ahead and they move the chips to the middle and say, let's double down on it. So what they do is they assume now that David's ready for war. David's probably not ready for it because he still likes Amon, owes them Hakar Satov. All they would probably really need to do was apologize. They don't do that, and he prepares for war. So now, at this point, when you have your people telling you that they have 20,000, 12,000, it's a lot of people, a lot of soldiers, you've got to get ready for war too. The Yishma David, Yishlachas Yoav, that's Kol Hatzava Hagivorim. So David hears this, and David himself sends out people to war. How can he not? How can he not? The Mefarshim point out over here that David sends Yoav. Yes, David's general is Yoav. His main general of the army is Yoav. However, in every other war, especially the wars we saw 2 chapters ago in Paraches, we said that David went out to war too. That was one of the great points of David HaMelech, is that he went out to war with his people. In this war, David specifically did not go out because he felt responsible for the war. He should not have been merachim, right, on these Aksarim. This was a mistake. And he felt that if he would go out to war, his people would die because of him. Like there'd be kitra, an accusation against him personally, and it'd be taken out on the entire people. So David stays home. This is going to be very, very important when we learn what happens in the next paragraph, right? Because David is home now, right? This is now Avera Goreres Avera. David made a mistake, and because David made a mistake, they ended up in a war. And because they end up in a war, David doesn't go out to the war because it's his fault. So David stays home. And because David is home, right, who does David end up seeing on a rooftop in the next chapter? That is Bathsheba. And Bathsheba's husband is at war. Who are they at war with? This war of Ammon. This whole story, right? If this story doesn't happen, we don't have the story of David and Bathsheba, right? Which we'll analyze, like what in the world happened over there. But that is super relevant to what is happening right now. This all sets the stage up for the next succession of, really, like I said, the entire rest of the story of all of Sefer Shmuel Beis, and really David's life is forever changed. And it begins with this mistake, not with the mistake of Bathsheba. That is number two, not number one. Obviously, we didn't do Bathsheba. That okay, we'll talk about that as Rashi next week. Vayetzu b'nei Amon vayarchu milchama Pesach Hashar Ramtzova urchov ishtov ma'achei levadam basadam. The b'nei Amon prepare for war at the opening of the gates. Right? They split. What they do, which is very, very smart, is they split up into two different groups. You have Ammon and you have the mercenaries. The Ammon people are the Pesach Ha'ir. We don't know which Pesach Ha'ir, the opening of the city, but they're at right in Israel proper, preparing against Israel. And you have everybody else preparing to fight in the fields. Right? It's good. Split up, better. Think of Israel now, right? You have two different wars happening. Really, meant be 4 or 5 different wars. It's one big war, but you have the north and the south. Splitting up the army is not good for Israel, right? Especially that they have way more fighters than we do, especially in Hezbollah in the north. So, Vayar Yoav, Yoav sees that there's two different wars happening. You have two different armies. So what does he do? He chooses the best to fight against Aram. So he takes Aram, that's Syria, Aram Tzova. They already beat them. So he goes ahead and he wants to fight Aram. And he sends his brother Avishai. These are all Yoav, Avishai, are David's nephews. He sends Avishai to go ahead and to fight against Ammon in the city. Right? So two different wars happening at the same time. By Yomer, and he says in the following, Techazak Aram Imeni, Aisali, Yeshua. Ibnei Ammon, Yechasku Mincha, Balachbi Loshiach, Lach. So we're going to make a deal, right? What's a deal? If Aram is too strong for me, right, then you're going to come and help me. And if Aram is too strong for you, then I'll come and help you. Meaning, we're going to fight each other's wars. But if we ever you need backup or I need backup, then we just need to keep the communication lines open, and we will go ahead and help each other. And then he says the following, which maybe this might sound familiar to a lot of us. This pasuk is borrowed and is brought into our siddur. Chazak v'nitz chazek aramenu. So Yoav gives a pump-up speech before they go out to war to Avishai. Chazak, be strong and be strengthened on behalf of our nation. Know who you're fighting for. Not fighting for yourself. You're fighting for Am Yisrael. The cities of Hashem. These are his cities. Hashem Yasatove. Now that Hashem is going to do good in his eyes. The Mefarshim are curious. What is he saying? Be strong and be strengthened from what? What are we talking over here? What is he saying we should be strengthened for? So the Gemara writes, there are 4 things that need chizuk, that always need our re-strengthening. And they quote a pasuk that highlights this, and that is Kaveh el Hashem, Chazak Yad Tzibacham, Kaveh el Hashem, which means you should be strengthened, right? And if things don't work out, you should strengthen yourself even again. There are 4 things that always need strengthening in our lives. Torah, learning Torah, always. Yetzer Hara is always out to stop us, make us tired, procrastinate. Maasim Tovim, good deeds, helping people out. We always have excuses as to why we don't have time or why people don't deserve our help. Tefillah, davening. Second, you open a siddur. I don't think I need to explain. Why that needs strengthening? And derech eretz, which here Rashi explains, is parnasa, working hard. All these things need strengthening. Rashi says, what does this mean? They need strengthening. Is that you need to constantly be working very hard. When we let up our guard in any of these areas, then they don't happen on their own, right? We may think they happen on their own, but they don't really happen on their own. So what was happening really here is that Yoav says, even when you see that you're being successful at war, don't let your guard down. You have to continue to be like, full speed on the gas. You can't let go of the gas right now. And that is very, very significant. And this pasuk, as we know, is taken at every single time we finish a sefer in the Torah. We say, Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek. Okay. So I have a sefer here, Iyeh Hayam, written by Abraham Yirmiyahu David, and he said that he wants to ask Chaim Kanievsky why we don't really, it's Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. But here, Yoav just said Chazak, V'nit Chazek. So why do we have Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek? He said that when it comes to Torah, you want to encourage the plow with further. We need to double down on our strengthening of our Torah. That's always very, very important. And you see that more important than the midos of like the knowledge that God endows with, or the intellect that people have, the people that last longer within Torah are those that work hard for it. It's true about all endeavors. And so that's the chizuk that we give the community every single time we finish a book in Torah. It's a reminder in general to strengthen our Talmud Torah. So Yoav went drew near to the Aram, and they ran away. They're mercenaries. They're not going to fight the Jewish people. They're afraid, right? We have mercenaries now who are not afraid, but they are afraid. Uvnei Ammon ra'u kinas Aram. And Ammon saw that Aram ran away. Vayenusim b'nei Avishai. So once Ammon saw that Aram ran away, they ran away too. So then they returned back home to Yerushalayim. Now that Aram, right? So round one, check, the Jewish people won. And there was no battle. It doesn't seem like there was even a battle. Everyone just ran away. But Aram was embarrassed, right? This is not even Aram's battle. This is Ammon's battle. Aram was embarrassed. And they gathered together again, and they want to go ahead and now kill the Jewish people. Vayishlach Hadad Ezer vayotzei es Aram asher me'evar nar vayavo chilam yeshovach sar tzava Hadad Ezer lifneihem. So Hadad Ezer, who is the king of Aram, sends people along with their general Shovach to go ahead and to fight another war against the Jewish people. So this one innocuous mistake, well-intentioned mistake, causes a war which the Jewish people win without a battle. This angers another country, Aram, to double down on their mission and to not fight a war. By Yugadu David Vaisovas Kol Yisrael Vayavor Ha'es Yarden Vayivu Chelama Vayarchu Aram across David Vayachamolizov. So David now, either he goes out to war himself, or he knows this is happening. Some say this happened Al Pi Ruach HaKodesh. He says by Yugadu David in Pasuk Zion. It was told him. Who told him? In Ruach HaKodesh, Hashem told him that they're gathering together, go down to the Yarden and go get them. Vayanas Aram Mibnei Yisrael ve'erod David me'aram shva me'os recha va'arbi'im ela parashim. So David, listen to how many people he kills: 700 chariots and 40,000 horsemen. Whoa. And he even kill the general of Aram. Like not even a contest. Now all the kings that were the servants of Hadadezer had like a huge kingdom, a lot of different, I guess, governments in his, or subsidiaries under him. And they made peace by Yashlimu as Israel. They made peace with Israel. They were afraid by Yavdum, and they paid more taxes to them. But right, and Aram now was afraid to help Ammon. Right, they were like, we were put in our place. We tried. A lot of people died in this battle. They did not need to die. The Jewish people did not start this war at all. And now Aram steps back. Okay, but the battle's not done. Ammon is still angry. Ammon is still seething. There's still a battle to happen with Ammon. And that's where we're going to stop here. I'm going to continue with this battle. But in the
Rabbi,
in the context of this entire battle is the backdrop to where the story of David and Bathsheba happens, which is really going to take us to Prakim. We're taking probably a long time on this. It directly relates to the Rosh Chodesh Elul is next week. It relates to tshuva in many, many ways, to mistakes that we make and how do we bounce back from mistakes that we make. And this is maybe the most serious of mistakes that somebody can make. How do we do that? And how do you relate to David really after this major mistake? Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, did this period now start a transformation for David? It seems that in the past, he was very well thought out. He didn't react right away. He could have killed Shaul numerous times and he held back. And now it seems that he just reacted to this incident and maybe there was another way to resolve it. It just seems, and then you're going to have to think with Bathsheba also. He seems to be reacting to things that he sees.
Let's see what happens with Bathsheba. We don't see that here. Here, there are other people that are going to fight against him. And they don't want peace. What do you do?
No, but originally, he basically sent all those troops. He could have tried to send an emissary. Let's talk. Let me explain to you what I was really intended to do. It just seems that he's a little bit of he's a hothead and reactionary to things.
Yeah, I don't really see that here. I see that's on them. They did an act of war. It doesn't seem like David's going to be able to explain away why he brought them now because they did something pretty horrible, and then they prepared for war right away. Why is that on David then to explain? They're not going to trust him anyway. You just, you have 100 troops. You have 10,000 troops at your border. Like if you don't get your army ready, and you just say no, let me just talk to him. It's going to work out. Like you are at a deficit.
And you say, hey, cuz, let's talk. We're related.
I thought we did that already, and he blew that out of the water.
It doesn't work in today's times either.
No, I think what we're learning here is so relevant for everything that we're learning. These are such similar stories happening over and over again. In a way, it gives you chizuk. In a way, you're like, come on, we got to figure this out. We have to figure this out. Figure this out. Okay, wish everybody a great day. Enjoy the last week of the summer. Have a great week. Okay.
Thank you.